On a stormy night, Mark, an ambitious journalist, drives into a forgotten village to uncover the chilling mystery of a house abandoned for over a decade. Locals whisper about the family who once lived there, kind, warm, and seemingly perfect, until they vanished without a trace. Mark stepped out of his car into the pouring rain, eyes fixed on the dilapidated house at the edge of the village. The storm raged around him, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. He was here for a story about a family who had vanished mysteriously, leaving their home abandoned for 10 years. The house stood eerie and silent, as if it were hiding something, and Mark was determined to uncover it. The door creaked open when he reached it, and the musty smell of decay hit him instantly. His flashlight flicked on, revealing a house frozen in time, covered in dust and cobwebs. Mark moved cautiously through the darkened hallways. The air felt heavy, as if the house was watching him. The walls seemed to whisper, voices just out of reach, and the floorboards groaned under his weight. He wasn't alone. He could feel it, deep in his bones. He stopped in front of a wall filled with pictures of the family, smiling faces, perfect and lifelike. But the eyes of the family members seemed to follow him. Something wasn't right about them. The feeling of being watched grew stronger. He entered the living room, and that's when he noticed the mirror hanging on the wall. It was old, its frame intricately carved. The flashlight beam hit its surface, and for a split second, Mark saw something shift in the reflection. Just a shadow, barely perceptible. Moving down the hall, he came across more pictures, but this time, the faces were different. They were no longer happy. Now they looked terrified. The expressions twisted in agony, their eyes hollow, as if the pictures themselves were suffering. At the end of the hallway, he found a door slightly ajar. Inside was a room filled with strange artifacts, old books, scattered candles, and objects that seemed out of place. But what caught Mark's attention was a small wooden pedestal in the center of the room. Sitting on top was a dusty, ornate box covered in strange symbols. Without thinking, he approached it. As he opened the lid, a low, guttural growl echoed through the room. Dark mist began to spill out of the box, swirling around his feet, creeping up his legs like cold fingers. Mark stumbled backward, but the mist followed, growing thicker, suffocating. The whispers grew louder, surrounding him. "Leave! Now!" a voice whispered, right next to his ear. Mark spun around, his breath quickening, but the room was empty. The mist was thickening, filling the room with a palpable, malevolent energy. He tried to move, but couldn't. His legs wouldn't obey. It was as if the house itself was holding him in place. Then he saw them. Figures emerging from the shadows. The family. Their faces were twisted in agony, their eyes empty, and they were no longer human. They were something else. Something worse. Their mouths moved, but the words came out as whispers, just out of reach. "Get out!" The door behind him slammed shut with a deafening crash. Mark turned to pull it open, but it was locked. Panic surged through him as the shadows closed in. The whispers became frantic, desperate. The air felt thick with an ancient evil, and Mark felt it closing in, suffocating him. A voice, louder now, echoed in his mind. "You shouldn't have come." Mark's vision blurred. He could feel the presence of something dark, something ancient, pulling him in. His body froze as the darkness overtook him. The next morning, the villagers found Mark's car parked at the edge of the road. the storm now a distant memory. But Mark was gone. No sign of him, no trace. It was as if he had simply disappeared, swallowed by the house that had consumed the family before him. The house stood, silent as ever, waiting for the next curious soul to enter. And the whispers? They never stopped.